So the panel chair. Okay. Good day, sir. The panel chair.
I am.
Okay. Do we have all our presenters here?
Their names.
Yeah, their names.
Yeah.
Okay. So we would like to start about nothing.
Okay. Do you want their names? Yeah, there's one. Yeah. So, sir? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's plugged in and. Right. Yeah. Okay, well, welcome, everybody, to this panel. My name is Matthew Andrews. I'm a historian from the University of North Carolina, better known as the University of Michael Jordan. Most people know that. I'm very honored to be here. This is my first time in Lagos, and I was so impressed by the tremendous sense of community at the opening ceremony, and I've been overwhelmed by how friendly everyone is. You walk down the street, and people say, "Good morning," and "How are you doing, sir?" That does not happen in U.S. cities. I assure you, yeah, I like it better here. So I'm honored to have been allowed to chair this panel on religion and sports betting in Nigeria. I'm a historian of the United States, but I specialize in the links between sports, politics, and American culture. And I have a special interest in sports gambling, interest both academic and, if I'm being honest, kind of personal too. So I'm going to start by introducing the organizers of this panel. I apologize, I'm still working on my Nigerian pronunciation. I'm working hard on it, though. One day I'll be a proper Nigerian. The organizers of this panel are Peter Lorende and Ola Ofalabi. Peter Lorende is lecturer at the Department of Religious and Intercultural Studies and is one of the managing editors of the International Journal for Contemporary Research in Humanities at Leeds City University. He has published a book on mythical spiritualities and other topics related to popular culture and internet religion. Ola Papalave holds a PhD in Peace and Conflict Studies from the University of Ibadan. He is a lecturer and head of the Department of Religious and Intercultural Studies at Leeds City. His current research interests include religion, church history, and conflict and peace studies. One of his recent publications is titled "Adopting African Traditional Principles of Conflict Resolution in a Local Church Setting." So, Dr. Rende and Ofalabi, I was wondering if you'd be willing to just say a few words about why you wanted to propose this panel, then you get panelists.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. Thank you for attending this program for this panel. Like I said, my name is very one of the reasons why we organize this panel is to research gambling as part of society. And in fact, we have gambling as taking a chunk of becoming a society. Nowadays, sometimes go to church on Sundays, but nowadays you find them at events, sport parlors or beer parlors where they share forecasts and their ways to. So we'll be delighted to hear some of your insights and your papers to the media and
one of the reasons that we decided to propose this panel is that I found out that we are religiously people in this place in Nigeria. And I don't think every religion, whether Islam or Christian or even Latino, actually expected. But at the same time, they are carrying the whole religion, one way or the other, and look at it, investing. So, one of the reasons that if they do it, there's a fact that their religious instruction was investing. And how they to reconcile their conscience and their economic justification for betting, because they are kind of need as well, I need money. And of course, I don't like to go back to the religious organization and ask forgiveness. I think that if you take the money, you can also take the outside of all the account and everything. So how are they able to manage this different something? You know, their religious mindset and their economic mindset at the same time, which I found that it's kind of a personal conflict for them. So that was the reason why we tried to with this channel to actually seek to be an existing knowledge and family behavior, religion, interpersonal conflicting justification, and autonomy. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. All right, obviously we need to speak loudly. It sounds like there's a sporting event out there or something going on, so we'll have to be heard over that. So, all right, so the stars of our show today are our panelists. Obviously, I will introduce each panelist and their paper title in the order that it's listed in the LSA program. And my understanding is that 4 papers, we're at about a 15-minute time limit for each of the sections. I'll hold up a hand after 10 minutes, letting you know there's 5 minutes. And if you're on Zoom, just please do your best to stay at 15 minutes. You won't be able to see me waving frantically for over the time limit there. So our first paper comes from Reverend Idris Alamashan, who's presenting on Christian theology on gambling among Nigerian youths. And Reverend Alamashan is a practicing theologian and academic in the Religious Studies Department at Olabisi Odabanjo University. His research combines, very interestingly, biblical philosophy with social and economic philosophies. He has a particular interest in what he calls the Christian response to the menace of gambling. So let us welcome Reverend Alamashan.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be part of this meeting. Thank you so very much. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Can I go on? Okay, thank you so very much. It's such a rare privilege to be part of this discussion this afternoon. We're looking at Christian theology and its response to the menace of gambling, particularly sport gambling in Nigeria. We need to understand something that naturally human beings were creation of curiosity and adventure, and this naturally will lead us into forecasting and so many other things. This as part of our nature, coupled with the economic reward that comes with gambling. And the recent passion for football is also fueling gambling seriously, particularly among the youth in Nigeria. Of course, we know that religious bodies do not support gambling. They teach against it. But clearly we can establish in the scriptures that there is no particular place where we have a straight, clear court instruction that says gambling is bad. But yet we cannot say that the scriptures support gambling, at least going by the principles that are clearly established in the Bible that should guide the life of an average Christian. One of such principles is the principle of stewardship. God owns all things and is entrusting everything, including our financial resources, unto us to manage on his behalf. And if God is asking us to manage his resources, then we need to understand that we will give account of how we manage the resources that is entrusted to us. That's one. Secondly, one of the things we know about God, going by the scriptures, is that he is not a God of chances. God operates based on precedent, not on chances. He not on, oh, this might happen. God says this will happen and it will happen. It's not a matter of circumstance or situation. It is actually like, this is what I want. And gambling, of course, supports chances. Of course, before we could establish gambling, of course, there must be risk, there must be reward, and there must be consideration. So all of this, when we look at it holistically from the biblical perspective, is against what God wants. But yet here we are, a lot of our youth are embracing it. And do you want to blame them for embracing it? No, there are so many factors that are actually motivating or luring a lot of youth into gambling. One of such factors has to do with the economic situation here in Nigeria. There are no jobs and people need to just make a living. And gambling happens, gambling, or what we call sport betting, happens to be a veritable tool that could address this issue. Then we also need to understand that when we talk about, am I still on?
Yes.
So now we also really need to understand that when we talk about gambling, of course, we need to separate them. There's a gaming factor aspect of it, and there's also the gambling aspect of that. There are researchers who have worked into this and have been able to give us some understanding as regard the differences between that gambling which has to do with skill and that which has to do with chances. But whichever way we look at it, we need to understand that there are consequences for every action that we take. Now, part of those consequences when it comes to gambling is that the risk of you losing the limited resources that you have at your disposal on the platform of throwing it at chances is there. But yet we need to understand that a lot of people are gambling today because of the economic benefit that comes. Now, government appears not to be disturbed. As a matter of fact, I read a particular material recently that was talking about government also benefiting from gambling. Somebody was saying that Lagos itself is aiming to become the gambling capital of Africa. So because of the tax and all of the things that comes with it, government appears not to be too perturbed about gambling and things like that. It seems it is only the religious body that are really shouting and are really working towards reducing this spread of gambling. I guess I will stop here and allow others to take, because I can't barely hear from your side. Okay, you can hear me? Network. Okay, now so quickly, so let's just delve into some of the factors that I believe is actually contributing to the challenge of gambling in Nigeria. One, I talked about the economic challenge. Two, of course, this is also related to the economic challenges that we're facing. Unemployment. There is a fact that is clearly established in Nigeria that gambling is not just a source of economic benefit to the teeming youth in Nigeria. It is equally addressing the issue of unemployment here, because the gambling industry is flourishing. Aside from the fact that we have the gambling office of course, take for instance the sporting bet, the sport bet thing. Now there are organized office platform where large screen television are installed, and so many smaller these things are there where you could walk in, and the ambience is friendly and it's cozy, and it allows for hanging out and stuff like that. So even for those who are not caught out to gamble, mere getting to that environment in the name of going there to watch ball, you could be lured on the platform of passion and stuff like that. So it's not just that gambling is promising reward. It is actually addressing the challenge of unemployment in Nigeria. And this is luring a lot of people into it. And we need to understand something about the spread of certain issues, particularly like gambling. The moment the locals are involved in it, it will flourish. And one thing that the gambling industry practitioner, one thing they've been able to use to their own advantage is to get the locals involved in it. You get there are kiosks, there are shops that when you bring the more, it's like making disciples of gamblers. And there are different ways of doing this by making sure that all that is required to get this done is being put in place. So a lot of people, particularly the young ones, are being recruited into this gambling online, and is spreading like wildfire. Now, quickly, let me talk about one or two consequences of this gambling thing. One of the consequences of it is that a lot of people, it creates that lazy attitude in the youth. When you could make money in an easy way, why do you want to go through the route of labor and all what have you? Of course, there are people who tell you that they make as much as a million naira, thousands of naira, by just predicting and stuff like that. So why go to an office and spend the whole of your days or of your month, and you are going to be paid 80,000 or 100,000 when you could gamble and you could make 1,000, or you could make hundreds of thousands. So some of these things are factors that are fueling gambling. But the consequence of those things is that it creates a sense of laziness in those youth. Apart from that, those youth who are supposed to channel their energy, their skills, their know-how into creative industry and solve some of the legal issues around us, are not looking at that again. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to go to. In fact, there is the popular, what is it called, that says school's a scam. So this gambling is coming up with so many challenges that we might not be laziness. Nobody is willing to be creative again. The work ethics is no longer there. And naturally, the consequence of gambling is that when you don't win, you will lose. And when you lose, you are prone to depression, and depression could lead to so many things. Aside from that, it's kind of create a magnetic force that pull people into some other crimes. Apart from you gambling, you start drinking, you start so many criminal activities and stuff like that. So on the whole, of course, gambling has its benefits, gambling has its own challenges. But if we're to decide what really is good for us, then we need to weigh the two sides of it and decide which side we want to go. But if you ask me, I think government needs to begin to look beyond the tax that it will get from all of this gambling industry and address the future of the youth. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much. Excited here. We have co-panelists for the next one.
Adesoji Adedepe and Emmanuel Etuede are presenting on religion and sports betting in Delta State. Adesoji is a PhD student at the Department of History at the University of Kansas. So a Jayhawk. Yep. All right. Rock Chalk Jayhawks. Yep.
They're academic interests are in Africa and the African diaspora, with special interest in studying Nigeria, South Africa, and Brazil. So she holds BA and MA degrees in history and peace and conflict studies from the University of Abuja and the University of Ibadan. And Emmanuel Etuede, who I believe is joining us on Zoom, is an independent researcher with interest in history and human security. He has a master's in peace and conflict studies with a specialization in human security at the University of Ibadan, and a bachelor's degree in philosophy at the University of Benin. So why don't we welcome these two scholars?
Thank you very much for coming out for this presentation. I don't know if Emmanuel has challenges joining us online, but I'll just take it up from here. Yeah, next slide. I'm looking at religion and sports betting in Obiaruku in Delta State. That's just the outline of what I want to present. Next slide, so that will save time. Yeah, so sports betting in Nigeria has become a national pandemic, just like Dr. Odeyinde alluded to. Akpansong and Oko 2021 notes that among young and middle-aged males, it's been acknowledged to become a way of life, and it's becoming worrisome and troublesome. It calls for some concern and some attention. The popular betting sites in Nigeria include Bet Naija, NairaBet, SportyBet, 1xBet, and so on and so forth. Then I want to present some statistics by Sawan, Imo, and Chudong about betting. In the southwest of Nigeria, it has a 92% prevalence rate among youths. And the south, it has a 91% prevalence rate among youths. 1.8 billion naira is spent daily on sports betting by persons between the ages of 18 and 40 years old. 60 million Nigerian youths commit at least 3,000 to sports betting daily. And this youth demographic cuts across various religious affiliations. Also, Nigeria is said to be a secular state, but like Dr. Afolabi said, was supposed to be a very religious community. Yet this statistics is the reality of that society. Next slide. So that just shows pictures of how active and people get in. You'll see from those pictures how busy and hectic those sites, those offices could be sometimes. People over the counters, people behind the counters, everybody getting busy. And it's really serious business. Some people even catching some refreshments while going on with the betting business. Now, religion and betting are exclusive concepts for social reasons. And we try to get the views of the three most recognized religions in Nigeria on betting. Islam actually forbids it. The Quran in chapter 5, verse 90 to 91 talks about, "O ye who believe, intoxicants and gambling, sacrificing to stones and divination by arrows, an abomination of Satan's handiwork. Eschew such abomination that ye may prosper. Satan's plan is but to excite enmity and hatred between you with intoxicants and gambling, and hinder you from the remembrance of Allah and from prayer." In Christianity, like the first presenter talked about, there is no specific and very clear warning to talk about what gambling is. But the closest we found is in Proverbs 13:11, where it says, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but who gathers money little by little will make it grow." That's the closest we found in Christian. There's nothing directly speaking against it. In the traditional concept in Obiaruku, they accept it, although there are no scriptural texts to back the claim that is acceptable. Next slide. So there are various social economic motivations for betting, which has been mentioned by the first presenter, so I don't want to run through it too much. But he didn't talk about peer pressure. Some youths are pressured to do it because everybody's doing it, they're doing it. There's poverty and unemployment in the land. There's lust for quick money, he mentioned that already. And then there's massive expansion of the betting shops to where even if you're not interested, it's going to come to your doorstep, it's going to come to the next street. So you'll be, like you talked about, young people are curious. What's going on in there? They want to go in there and see, and before they know it, they get into the act already. Next slide. Sorry, one more thing I need to mention is the fact that we're also a football-loving nation. We love to watch football a lot, and most of the time we go and watch in viewing centers. There's small makeshift shops like that for that people going to watch football. So if you're that much of a football fan, people go in there, some people are more alarmed than you are with the outcome of the matches. Then you ask yourself what's going on in there, and that could also sprout your interest in it because you love the sport of football. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the research question is, what is the motivation for religious accommodation of betting in Obiaruku, Delta State? And we want to discover why, irrespective of people's religious positions on betting, many people who claim to be religious, people who claim to be practicing Christians, people who claim to be practicing Muslim, people who claim to be practicing traditionalists, all practice betting for various reasons. Next slide. So we used participant observation at different Bet Nigeria offices across Obiaruku, such as the one at Amai Junction, Eziopo Road, Agbo Saple Express, and Faith Water Street. And we actually interviewed Christians who bet, 2 pastors, a deacon, a church youth member, and a Bet Office Nigeria, the Bet Office Nigeria manager. Next slide. This is just a brief about where Obiaruku is. It's in Okwani local government in Delta State. He has a population of 68,000 people, according to the 2006 census. It's a predominantly Christian community. The first Anglican church was founded in 1910 in that community. There is actually over 100 churches presently there. There's a handful of Muslims, just 2 mosques that caters for the few Muslims, the youth corps members in this community. And there are also few adherents of traditional religion, which conflictable result to traditional religion. And most of them actually do it in some form of syncretism. They practice Christianity and traditional religion. So next slide, please. Our findings are the fact that, let me just run through this. Males and females engage in sports betting, but males do more because males watch football more and they're interested in sport. Adult males over 45 are also involved in betting. So they go outside the youth group of 18 and 40 that I talked about. So we figure that in that community, people who are 45 and over, older men who are actually males actually, and several church leaders and elders also participate. I've talked about how sports viewing centers influence this process. Majority of those who do it are poor, they are daily income earners, they are artisans, they are insecticide hawkers, they are drivers. People just want to make a living. People who are struggling financially, they have economic challenges. That's why they're doing it. We also established the fact that the percentage of loss is higher than gains. In the truth of that's the truth of the matter. But the issue is that the betting is addictive. Once you start, you don't stop. Even if you lose money, you keep at it. They keep telling you that you're going to win. You see somebody who was one person wins out of 100 in a whole year, and you're still hopeful that you're winning because you're addicted. You're stuck on it. So church folks play it, and they told us, the deacon and the pastor told us they actually paid their tithes and their offerings, which speaks to what Dr. Afolabi had said earlier. They actually paid tithes and offerings from earnings from betting, was one of our findings. And bettors also express hope in God. They actually pray to God to help them win big, is what they told us. Okay, thank you. People are confirming our findings in the room. Betting's position in Christianity is unclear, like I talked about earlier on. That's one of the challenges with the religious beliefs that we have. Betting is a business, is what one of the clergymen told us. So he sees it as a business that he's getting into. He doesn't see it as a sin. Okay. He says they said betting has no spiritual implications over their life. They still fast, they still pray, they're still holy, they believe they're still righteous, even if they are betting. Yes, nobody should judge them. That's what they keep saying. And like I said, they pay their tithes and their offerings, the proceeds. The Muslims who came across in Obiaruku don't practice it because they believe the Quran forbids it. The traditional religious believers, despite the fact that they profess traditional religion and there's nothing condemning it, they actually don't get into it. It's socially permitted, even if it's not encouraged, but they seldom get into it. Next slide, please. Did I miss that? Okay, next slide. Okay. So the implication of betting, I've talked about addiction, financial loss is massive. It also creates spousal conflicts in the homes because of the losses and the money habits, the way the spouses spend money of it creates a lot of conflicts in the homes. They incur huge debts. There's poverty being recycled, whether they want to accept it or not. It exposes youth to unproductive get-rich-quick schemes, which the first presenter had talked about. Continual spread likely to distort the concept of dignity of labor in upcoming generations in our society, because the young people today are going to constitute the elders of the community soon. And if this is kind of youths we're building who believe that the best way to make money, the best way to be rich and to be dignifiable in communities through gambling and betting, the future does not look bright. And this is next slide, please. Concluding thoughts. The position of the church needs to be clear on gambling and sports like it is in Islam. That's what I think. Churches are also complicit in the right for youth addiction to sports betting, as long as there's no definite position on it. The Christian and traditional religions in Obiaruku have a reinforcing impact on sports betting, unlike Islam, which discourages this altogether. Thank you very much for listening. Maybe that was a problem initially. I think I spoke to the microphone.
Yeah, it's extra element. Maybe he was going to be online. Is there anyone else? They're all
Is anybody else online? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Where's Johnson? Yeah, that's right.
Extra is online.
Okay, great. Can you hear us? Extra. That his voice is that automatic voice, yeah.
Hello, Extradelinum, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Greg, can you turn on your camera by any chance?
I tried to. Okay.
There we go. Great.
Yeah.
Yes, great. Yes, sorry for any confusion. I'm going to introduce you, and then we're excited to hear your paper.
Yes, sir.
Extradelinum Akinsanya is a researcher in religious education and conflict studies in the Department of Language, Art, and Social Science here at Lagos State University. His research, his areas of interest are the commercialization of religion, religion as a tool for managing crisis, and pragmatic religious education curriculum. His paper is titled The Morality of Sports Betting from an Evangelical Christian Perspective. So let's welcome Extradelinum.
Yeah, good afternoon. I've listened to the our two presenters, and they did a very good work. Some of the things they actually highlighted, some of the things I'm also going to speak to in this paper. But actually, I want to bring our minds back to some past incidents in Nigeria. Number one, there was a time that Ghana won under 20 World Cup. And when they were playing the final, the coach, it went into penalties. And the coach was actually on phone and communicating with the pastor in Nigeria. The pastor told him that the number 10 player should be the one to take the last penalty. And he actually took the last penalty, and they won that match. That thing was reported in the newspaper because the pastor actually said that God had told him that they are going to win, and he was guiding the coach of Ghana spiritually, along the way. And the second one is from TB Joshua. Predicted that Nigeria was going to win a particular match, and that prediction actually come true. Now, in those two scenarios, if somebody is a member of that particular church and he believes that his pastor is a true man of God, whenever he predicts, it will come to pass. Will it be morally wrong for that person to stake his money on that prediction? For example, if there is a site that says that, okay, this match, if you this match will either win it or draw or whatever, and the pastor had given a prediction that that particular match, like Euro that is ongoing, if a pastor says, for example, Portugal will win the match at the end of the day, is it not right? Will it not be right, or will it not be morally right, or will it not make economic sense if I stake my 100,000 into that to fetch me maybe about 10 million at the end of the day, because my pastor's prediction has always come to pass. You know, this is the dilemma that we find ourselves in Nigeria as an evangelical Christians. You know, the preachers, the people, they have actually they have actually entered into various aspects of our lives. You know, they make predictions, they tell facts or they foretell facts, and all these things have effect on the psychology of young people. So this study is just a case study about what is going on in Nigeria presently, how there is a kind of nexus between religion and sports, and how the effect on the youth population, how they view sports betting in Nigeria. So this case, we're trying to theologize moral choices, you know, and it's a very difficult thing to actually come to that concept that what is wrong in staking my money on the prediction of my pastor? What is wrong in staking my money based on what my pastor said? You know, because I believe that if God does not want me to actually bet, He wouldn't show my pastor that kind of outcome. Maybe it's a way of God trying to bless His people. You know, when you know that incident that okay, pastors give prophecy, and people will act in line with that prophecy, and they will be blessed. Is it not a way of being blessed? You know, this moral dilemma has always been what the youth are facing presently in Nigeria. And as our last speaker said, that Nigeria is a secular state. The first speaker mentioned something about Nigeria being a religious community, but gradually Nigerians are losing hope in a religion, and there are studies that show that even their comments, there was a general assessment I did on social media apathy, or apathy of people on religion, apathy of people to religion based on social media analytics. Find out that people are now turning their back to religion, especially Christianity, as a result of conflict in doctrines and conflict in positions of different pastors. You see this one attacking this one. This one said this one is not. This doctrine is not true. This one say no. This one is not biblical. So youth in Nigeria are in dilemma. They don't know exactly what is true and what is not true. And based on the fact that gambling is not directly condemned in the Bible, or at that particular time, with that generation, gambling has not been a major social issue, and so it was not a major point of discussion, especially from the New Testament perspective. So people think it's an individual choice. So this work, the scope of this work is to look at sporting betting as a subcategory, which involves staking money on the final result of the sporting or sport events. So the type of event is irrelevant, but most of the events in Nigeria, the major events here that people involved in is soccer. So the conceptual framework to achieve these sports and sporting activities, moral goals is therefore seen as an ethical entry which should be pursued ethically and under ethical consideration. In addition, the ethical rules of the game have power over the other means of ethical goals. It cannot determine these goals. This then prepares the mind for a discourse of sports betting, while pointing to the fact that Christians should be guided by biblical principles in all activities, including sports and sports betting. So the evangelicals, generally they believe they believe in true conversion, that anybody who wants to come to Christ must be truly converted, must have given his life to Jesus Christ. They believe in encounter with supernatural. They believe in the authority of the Bible. They believe in the authority of the church. They believe in church leadership, and so on and so forth. So that belief in church leadership actually has created a kind of moral loophole. When you believe in your pastor and your pastor says this, for example, there have been instances that pastors have told their members that this will happen. They can go and bet on it. He can even bet his on it. He can bet his car. He can bet his house on it. It's to happen. So if members now following their pastors, they go and do, maybe the pastor
This is happening.
Okay. Oh, sorry, the network. I want to go to like the last speaker said. He said that most Nigerians like watching ball in a sports arena, in sport places, in viewing centers. So when they do social networking, there is this influence of other the peer influence. People just say, okay, Arsenal is going to win, Barca is going to win, and things like that. So you join the flow. So there is this influence on the activity of young people as they go out with their friends to watch football and to participate in that. So the methodology for this study is a case study. We use case study design. We're trying to examine how conservative evangelical Christian, irrespective of their education, perceive gambling as a moral issue. In understanding that we try to see it from individual perspective. So it is ethical individualism. That is, each person, the salvation, we believe that salvation is not a group activity. Salvation is individual. If every individual will have to work salvation out. So from this study, the study which has focused on sporting betting, we found that despite the fact that there is a round condemnation of gambling as an unethical act, gambling or sports betting, the way it is now, especially the way it is done online, is now seen as a lesser evil. gambling in those days, like you go and get a paper to mark it and all of that. But now, presently, people see gambling more as a game than as a moral activity, or as a moral activity, like a booking, like maybe womanizing or something like that. They just see it as a game. You just take your money there, you play a game. So this technology makes it a lesser evil, so to say. That's a finding. So people are now wondering what is wrong in just playing a game. It's just a game. So then it's just a game that you just take some money there, and if you win, good luck. If you don't win, good luck. But we can say that there are some verses, like the last speaker said, that are close to condemning gambling, not of gambling, like Proverbs 13:11, Proverbs 23, 4-5, 28, 19 to 20, the First Timothy 6, 9-10. But of course, all these scriptures are controversial because none of them actually mentioned gambling. As I conclude, we just saw that the major theological tradition and their moderate stance would not provide sufficient reason against sports betting in the context we address. And in the context we operate now, with technology-driven sports betting, we cannot categorically say that it is right or it is wrong. I think it is to be left to the individual to make their decisions. However, we should know that the stance of the Bible is always the same, that people should be guided by the Holy Spirit. I don't know if it's the Holy Spirit now that leads people to gamble or not, but gambling as considered in the Old Testament, we can see it from that allusion that is evil. The New Testament on its own is silent on the issue, but now we leave it to people to decide whether it's right or wrong. But 54% of the people that were examined in the course of this study said there was nothing wrong in gambling. So, which means that about half of the people saw nothing wrong in it, and half of the people think that is evil. However, the government are doing a lot about it. They will say, when they advertise gambling, they will say it is not for people below 18 years, age of 18 years old, 18 years. So, which means that they are putting it at par with drinking alcohol, because the age of drinking in Nigeria is 18 years old. So, I think we should just do more to theologize this, and based on the current situation in Nigeria, it will be very hard to convince the youth not to involve in sporting gambling. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much, and please stick around because we'll have questions in just a few minutes. I'm wondering if our panelists are online. Is there anyone else waiting to get on Zoom, or Johnson or Caroline here? Yeah. Oh, great. So last we have Johnson Osaje and Caroline Adejoyebe, who are presenting on gender, religious affiliations, spirituality, and gambling among tertiary institution students in Abeokuta metropolis. Dr. Johnson Osaje has a background in economics education. He has a master's in educational guidance and counseling from the University of Lauren. He earned his PhD in psychology at Northwestern University in South Africa. And he is presently the head of the Department of Psychology, Guidance, and Counseling at the Federal College of Education in Africa. And just this week, he was elected to represent the academic board of his institution at the Governing Council. So congratulations. And is Caroline joining us?
No.
Okay, all right. That's Welcome, and yeah, we'll give you one more round of applause before you start.
Thank you. Thank you for the applaud. Now I want to start on this note. Can I have the slides?
People here, okay?
Yes, we can hear.
No, and now over there, would it be better over on the side there?
Can you hear?
Please, next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Okay.
To start with, I would like to let us know my passion. My PhD was in gambling, and my experience in the field was something else. I remember the day I went to the Lagos State government. I came all the way from South Africa to come and tell them that my school said that I need a letter from them that they are approving of me to do the research work in Nigeria. The old board of the gambling board had to meet me. They said, what am I up to? It was a serious war. And I got the lesson, I got the gist. Gambling fetches Lagos State lots of billions. So anyone that dabbles into that field is as if you want to spoil their market. However, the mental health of our youth are in jeopardy. In some few years to come, it may be explosion, it may be serious hazards that we'll start experiencing. So we have to brace up on research on gambling. To me, we are not doing enough research on gambling. And government is keep quite on it because of what they are gaining. And mind you again, gambling in Nigeria now, it has become a religion. Yes. People wake up as early as 6, 7, you see them at gambling sites. Young men, women. It's now a culture, it's now a norm, it's now a trend. It's now what people do, and they don't feel or sense the harm in it because they are not saying that people should not gamble, that they are below 18. That message is not strong enough. They must know the risk involved in gambling excessively. So I think when they are giving this advert, they should add those clauses to it, that gambling may be hazardous to your mental health. I think that should be added to it. And like I said, again, gambling behavior can be referred to as a continuum that ranges from low gambling to moderate gambling to high problem gambling. Like he has said, 60 million Nigerians between the age of 18 and 40 spend lots of billions on gambling on a daily basis. Now, my research work, the culture of gambling is trending among the youths who have come to engage in it with reckless abandonment. And youths, young adults and students in tertiary institutions have been discovered to be involved in various types of gambling, ranging from dice rolling, card playing, even ram betting. During the last Ilea Muslim festival, people go to fields and use their ram to gamble. Every Sunday, while you are in church, they are in their fields doing ram gambling. The rams will be separated. They will not release these rams to hit themselves. The one that falls down will pay the ones that are standing. It's a common trend among the youth. The next page, please. Now, despite the increasing prevalence of gambling, the risk factors in gambling and mental health, Nigerians have not been adequately, research attention has not been given to gambling as it ought to. While evidence shows that young adult student tertiary institutions group that are involved in gambling are likely to develop mental health if that issue is not addressed. With this background, Nigeria being a highly religious nation, and people that can be termed to be highly spiritual, we have to investigate how this relates with their gambling behavior. The next slide, please. The next slide, please. Now, let me just move to my objective. Next slide, please. Research. Now, our work looked into this. Is there any significant difference in the male and female problem gambling index? Number 2, what is the significant difference between a religious affiliation, that is Christianity, religious affiliation? I'm sorry, it's a mistake. Christianity, Islam, and traditional worship of students and their gambling behavior. The third one is there any relationship between students' spirituality and problem gambling? Now, when it comes to spirituality asks 3 dimensions, three dimensions. Spirituality talks about being self-aware. Number 1, your relationship with God. Number 2, and eco-awareness. Next slide. Now the research work, the research design, it is descriptive in nature. The population are all gamblers, students in public tertiary institution in Abeokuta metropolis. Sampling techniques, multi-stage sampling technique was used for the study. The first stage, 3 public tertiary institutions were purposely selected in Abeokuta metropolis. Thereafter, snowball sampling technique was used. That is, those that gamble helped us to meet their gambling friends to administer the questionnaires to them. What we used 2 major structured research, questionnaires. We used the Canadian Problem Gambling Index, adopted from Ferris and Wayne 2001. We also used the spiritual gambling by Delany 2005. And statistical tools are there for us to see, and ethical considerations are there too. Now, from our findings, we saw from our findings that the male, most of them that from the analysis already have problem gambling already, so they need help. When compared to the females, already have. So these students need serious help. Some of them, while they are in church, they still look at their phones to gamble. Hope you know that. While they are in church, while they are listening to sermons, they are with their phones gambling. And I think the church, the body, the religious body are not doing what they ought to do. Next slide, please. The next one, what is the significant difference when it comes to religious affiliation? We saw that almost all the religions scored high, but those that practiced traditional worship scored higher than other religions. And it's also interesting to know that even though Islam preaches against gambling, most of these youths still gamble, and they all scored high in their gambling behavior. Next slide. The third one, is there any relationship between spirituality? And we saw that the more higher you are in your spirituality, the less you are likely to gamble. And that shows, and that's the area we need to mention, that the religious body have a work to do. It's not enough just to preach your sermon. We have to teach them what is happening around them. We have to make our religion, we have to use it to address issues that have to do with us socially. Many of us, we preach out of context. We should bring our messages to context, what is happening to these youth. Use those scriptures to link it to gambling and tell them the dangers that they're likely to fall to if they continue. Next slide. Next slide, please. Now the discussion. We don't like what we found out was buttressed. These findings are in line with studies from Alanin that suggest that problem gambling is more prevalent among male than female, and that because female, like we know in psychology, they are more prone, they are more averse to taking risk, but women are and usually run from such things, but men take risks. So that's why many of them are involved in gambling. The next slide. The study reveals, again, this finding shows that the higher, like I said, the higher the spirituality, the lower they're likely to gamble. So it shows there's what we can do if we give them right teaching. I'm not saying gambling is bad, but if they are well informed, they can make informed decisions. Next slide. The present study has limitations because it's just focused on students in tertiary institutions, and we did not complement the research with qualitative study. The next slide. Implications. Counselors need to collaborate with certain religious affiliations in order to organize workshops in churches and mosques so as to enlighten them about the mental health challenges that may occur if people gamble irresponsibly. Again, counselors need to encourage religious organizations to establish a standard counseling or diagnostic centers in their various parishes. Lastly, we know that most churches, they have counselors, but these counselors, in quote, they are quack. They are not trained on the rudiments of counseling. So counselors can meet this area. Next slide. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you so much. That's a fascinating collection of papers and studies and giving us a number of things to think about. We've got some cross-pollination, we have different interpretations and perspectives. I was really struck listening to you talk. I teach these courses in the United States with about 350, 400 students. And probably once every 2 weeks, a young man comes in and tells me that he has a problem with gambling. And I'm not a therapist. I don't know. I have a card that I give them and I say, I think you got to call this owner. But it's happening more and more. You know,
Yeah.
Young men, telephones, sports.
Yeah.
It's kind of a perfect storm there in many ways. So I'm excited to open this up to questions and discussion. Can I defer to the panel organizers first, Peter and Ola? If you'd like to comment or ask questions first.
Well, thank you very much to all the presenters. I have a lot of questions actually. I think I want to engage you first. From what I've heard from the presenters, companies look at games, especially in men. But not really that's the case in the US. Because gambling is sometimes linked to poverty and things like that here. But in a wealthy country like the US, could there be other reasons why some of these youths go into gambling?
I think there are a lot of reasons. Yeah, I think a lot of reasons. I think a lot of it has to do with ideas about masculinity and how one projects masculinity. You know, in the United States, this notion of placing a wild wager, being reckless, sort of publicly reckless, is a sign in some parts of the United States as being a real man. And so I think that's part of it. But what I'm really struck by that question is, I think people who compare gambling on sports to the commodities markets and the stock market in the United States aren't far off. And for a long time, gambling on sports was illegal in the United States, but gambling on oil or butter or on cyber currencies, perfectly legal. And what's going on there, for a lot of poor men, I think they think of gambling. This is my expertise. I don't know oil. I don't know international currency, but I know football, or I know baseball, or I know basketball. This is where my expertise is. So I think it's interesting that the people who have passed the laws have tried to deny people access to making money through whether they are experts or not. They think they're experts. And to your point, should we forbid it, or should we just, look for the people who are overdoing it? But I think that idea is rooted. Anti-gambling laws in the United States are rooted in this idea that the people who are in power know better for the working class about what they should and should not do. So there are definite class power dynamics there.
Okay. Well, what I can infer so far is that I think gambling has become a popular culture, and so far I found out that people cannot say anything religiously wrong about it, because it's not like it is tied to a particular sin, so to say. It's just a matter of guessing, and if I'm right, well, just like a lock. And if I'm not right, well, I'll just take it that, well, next time I'll be right. Maybe just like those of us that try to apply for the fellowship and things like that, and sometimes you write an abstract or proposal and you just go, and you can try it another time and it won't go. So they too see it that way, that, well, they're just trying their luck. It's not that they are doing anything sinful. And I've read about somebody that actually used gambling money to sponsor his word from secondary school to university level. So it doesn't say anything bad in it. I've seen people that have used to build houses. So don't say that's something bad, because it's not that they are stealing, so to say, in which you said thou shalt not steal. So I'm just guessing. I'm not stealing anybody's money. And if I guess right, glory be to God. And if I guess wrong, well, next time I'll try my luck. So I think to tie to religion might a little bit difficult. And according to what you have said, is when you actually grow spiritually that you might actually feel bad about it. But if you are tied to the economic situation in your society, you might not actually see that it's actually bad.
Yeah. So yeah, we have questions I'll just start in front here, and please. Yeah, please.
We start with someone is online.
Someone's online and wants to. Oh, okay. Do you want me to? Yeah, but do you want to ask your question first? Yeah.
Can we start with this?
Sure. I don't care. Whatever you're all.
Okay. Yeah.
Good day, everyone. My name is Victor from the History Department. So my first question is to. Okay, my first question goes to Dr. Sam. Sir, you give us some analysis of how gambling has caused havoc in the community among the youths. So as a young coming scholar and a youth like growing up among our peers. So like me now, I'm into gambling before, but to the glory of God, it almost wrecked me, and God helped me, and I've done away with it due to the fact that when I see the challenges ahead of me, I now begin to discover that some of the little change I have, I'm supposed to be saving. So by the time Bet Nigeria, another gambling site has taken from me, what am I going to use at the end of the day? So I lose interest. So I know it is God that took control. But sir, how can we entrust our mindset to those youths, and how can we bring them to normalcy that what they are doing now is improper? So I have second question. It's not my question. Second question goes to Dr. Akinsanya. Okay. The third speaker. So the third speaker, I want to know that you take the gambling aspect to the aspect of spirituality, in which you make us understand that pastors are predicting inside the church. So in a situation whereby a church member took what the pastor said and went and gambled, and probably he won a lot of money, some money, does it mean that the person has sinned against God, or is it what you have said that made the person to sin against God? Because I was confused in that aspect. I don't know what to say. Although I noticed that some men of God do predict of a truly, and it will definitely come to pass. But I want to be convinced that if a church member or somebody, a passerby, heard of it and went and used it to gamble, because the person is totally sin against God, in which the person is trying to get a living. So I'm confused. Please, if you can help me throw some light. Thank you. Any questions?
Hello, my hands are still up.
Would anyone on Zoom like to? Go ahead.
My hands are still up.
Go ahead.
We can hear you.
Okay, now let me quickly clarify something as regard the question that was raised by our brother. Now, there's a clear-cut difference between prediction and prophecy. Now, prophecy is inspired. Prediction has nothing to do with inspiration. Prediction has to do with your expectation. Now, so that I address, but really, we cannot separate this issue of gambling and religion. Why? Because the whole essence of religion is to educate us and keep us within the right path. So if religion can no longer, as in, preserve the young ones from straying away, either morally or economically, then religion has failed. So we cannot exonerate the religious body when it comes to managing the challenge that gambling kind of present to us. I strongly believe that clearly there might not be a direct instruction written in the pages of the scriptures condemning gambling, but by implication, there are some principles that are scripturally grounded that should guide the life of every Christian, that forbids Christian from gambling. So we might not have a plain white and black, but of course we can deduce it from what we have in the Bible, that God clearly does not support gambling. God is like I said, while I didn't know there would be, I would have come up with slides and stuff, so I'm sorry for that. It's not an excuse, I guess. It's so many things. But you see, we must understand something, like I said earlier on, that all that we have, there is a settled principle in the scripture that we are stewards. God has given us everything we own to manage on his behalf. And the question is, will God be happy that we're actually throwing those resources and chances? Those are questions that I think we need to address. And I think as we address this, we will be able to make much sense out of it. But clearly, beyond the moral aspect of it, there is also this spiritual dimension to gambling. Thank you very much.
Comments? Someone just one line. Comments on this
I want to respond to the question extra lenum. To the question the young man asked the other time. You know, when we talk about moral dilemma, we're talking about situation in which it is difficult for us to have a clear yes or no answer. It is very easy to say that the Bible says this, the Bible says that, but we're talking about a situation in which the youth in Nigeria are under theological delusion. When you see what is going on the social media space, you will note that theologically, Nigeria Christianity does not have direction. You will see people like Dr. Abel Damini or whatever, and speaking against Pastor Adeboye, this one speaking against this one. These are established ministers in their own rights. And when you see the comment, when you read the comments of the young people there, because young people are the most, they are the ones following most of the time, you will see confusion. You will see, a lot of conflicts in their minds, because the way they answer, you will know that they are confused theologically, because there is no particular direction. So if a pastor, for example, predicts or says that, okay, Portugal will win this Euro, how will you now say, how do you tell the difference between that prediction and prophecy? Because the word prophecy itself has to do with foretelling. So that prediction is also foretelling. They came from the same root word. So you can't actually say, you can't actually clarify that. You can't actually say that pastor was not inspired by the Holy Spirit, was just predicting. Because inspiration by the Holy Spirit is an internal concept. And nobody can adjudge that. Nobody can say, no, it was not led by the Holy Spirit, it was led by this one. You can only discern based on your level of awareness in the spirit or whatever it is. So you can never say he's wrong or he's right, is this, is that, like that. So when a pastor now predicts that, okay, this will happen, and the members now stake their money on that prediction. So who are we going to blame? Is it the pastor that foretold the event? Is it the source of his revelation? Because he might say that he slept last night. Even Apostle Johnson, that is known for giving prophecies, has prophesied about outcome of sporting event before. He has said it before. Even people that are well established, that people know that they are not into frivolities, they always give prophecies. They have said things like that before. So if now young people now stake their money on that prophecy, who is now going to share? Who is now going to have the blame? Is it the source of the prophecy, or the channel through which the prophecy came, or through the prediction, or whatever we can call it, came, or is it the youth that took it line hook and sinker and staked its money on it? So it's actually causes a dilemma, in that. I was not trying to give a yes or no answer. I was just trying to paint the situation in which the youth in Nigeria find themselves in now. And based on the economic situation that is ongoing in Nigeria, that I saw the price of a tomato. Somebody bought it in Lekki, just 3 pieces. You bought it for 6,000 naira or thereabouts. In my area last week, tomato, just one tomato fruit like that, small, 1,000 naira. Like that. When the minimum wage is 35,000, and the youth unemployment in Nigeria is going to about 70%. So what option do they have apart from gambling and crime? So when you have two evils, people normally settle for lesser evil, because as the last person said, you cannot actually connect gambling to a particular sin. You cannot tie it to a particular sin. So I'm not actually advocating for gambling. I'm not actually advocating for following predictions of people to stake your money. But I'm actually painting the situation, the scenario, because truth must be told. This is our reality in this modern time. You either go into gambling or you go into crime. So you choose which one is right for you.
Thank you.
And I would love to get Emmanuel Etoede, who was one of the panelists, and didn't have a chance to speak earlier. Emmanuel, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, very good. We hear you good.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry for coming in now. The network did not allow me to present, but I will respond if you can hear me. I will respond to the first the question from the history student on what should be done on gambling for the community that is affected. That is Obiaroko here now. I don't know if you have access to the slide, but from our conclusion, what we found out was that the position of the church needs to be clear. Betting is a menace in the society, and the church is not clear about it. We're neither here nor there. We're talking about, well, we're just using our arguments to judge scriptures, but there is no clear-cut scripture that says this is bad. So we find even pastors advocating it. So the church, the first thing from our finding is the church needs to be clear. There was no opportunity to listen to the first presenter that talked on Christian theology. I really wanted to know what the Christian theology was on it, but the church needs to be clear. So we like in Islam, we need to show that this is bad, let's not do it. If we have that definite position, we can start from there. Then secondly, another thing that needs to be done from our finding is that since the government makes money from this thing, they encourage it. But I believe it to re-strategize and make it a profit venture for youth as well, not just for the government. We have thrift societies, we have thrift organizations where daily thrifts, where daily earners can come together. They call it in the local language, Ususu, where people come together to bring daily thrifts, daily incomes, and keep it for a time for them to come and retrieve after some time. That is a more guaranteed way of making money than spending 3,000 every day that you are not even sure of for gambling, and in the process incurring huge debts for months, for weeks, while you have families to feed. So I believe the church should be definite on what it wants and what it is. If gambling is, let them continue. Then let's participate in good about it. The government also can continue from there by converting this whole making money venture to profit ventures for youth themselves, not just for one or two who may cash out and go and say yes, they've gotten something, but for the majority of people that are betting and making investing daily on it. So I believe those two things should be done. Thank you very much.
Yes. I think there are some other questions. Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yes, since 2005, when the government legalized gambling in Nigeria, gambling has been on the rise, and it has become, easily accessible to everyone. And it's even more on the rise now because of the economic challenges we are facing in this country. So that is inevitable with what we are facing now. So the government makes a lot of money a lot of money from this every year. More so because they use the money in budgeting every year. So expecting the government to do the right thing is going to be very difficult. They can more or less not do without the billions or millions of money, of naira coming in. So my question is, can the government truly make effective laws that can, solve this problem? Because I know the rate at which we are going, the next few years, gamblers who have who fall into gambling disorder will be very many. and this will be a problem. So as I think, I don't know whether it's your hand. So right now, the government is not putting anything in place to take care of this future problem that is coming, and they need to engage in research and begin to plan towards it. So my question is, for a government who needs this money, can they really make effective laws that can, handle this problem? Because they are part of the suppliers. How can they now, at the same time, regulate effectively the gambling industry? It is not possible. In fact, we are expecting the impossible from the government. And until we begin to do the right thing, this problem will continue. So
well,
that is my
speak on that. My proposal in my research work was this, that if they are making that much from gambling, there should be a percentage from that proceed to see to the mental health of this youth. That is, each state must establish a diagnostic center. That's one. Number two, from that proceed, you can create jobs. I don't know, you can.
The responsibility for just on government or also
Percentage that the government is making from the tax, from the gambling
organization
together. Yes, Niger Bet, all of them should have a percentage that they are giving back to these youths. From that profit. That should be standard. And thirdly, there should be a research body that keep on researching on these issues. And government must pay for that bill using that same fund. This is what is done in other climes. We can't afford to be making money off gambling and leave and our hands are full, and we are seeing danger looming and doing nothing about it. So
I agree with you in the sense that when countries qualify for games, World Cup, for instance.
yes.
So they get a stipend each.
Correct.
Stage.
Yeah. True.
That some of that money will be used to develop the grassroots.
Yeah, sports back home.
This kind of suggestion
Yes.
will also be passed on to the whole federation.
Exactly.
Well,
We are making this much.
We should also go back. To use the
Yes, that's just it. That's just
Please, I have something. I have a contribution towards that, please. I'm sorry. We need to know that these organizations, betting organizations, they are doing exactly what you said. Let me give you an instance. I lecture in Lasso. You know, our radio station was actually constructed by Kesinte Adedibu, and he has spent a lot, you know, in Lasso. Actually, he's one of the high spenders, and that's what he does in many other institutions like that. You see, until we get into government, that's when we will know, how easy and how hard some of our suggestions can be implemented. Of course, is that money they use in paying salaries? Is part of that money? Is that part of that money they use in tarring roads? If you are looking at the context of, I'm not making excuses for the government of Nigeria. All those suggestions are good, but considering the present situation, considering the amount of money government makes compared to what government is to spend, we'll discover that there are some things that we may be looking at that government should do this, government should do this, government should do this. But the present reality in Nigeria is that it cannot be done because of the volume, because of corruption, of course, and the revenue, the dwindling revenue from Nigeria. Nigeria is a mono-economic country. Only petrol. We only depend on crude oil, and crude oil has not been doing well recently. So they are only looking for means and ways of making money. Most of the state governments cannot even fund their basic salary themselves. If they ask them, just pay your own salary, don't depend on federal allocation. Many states in Nigeria, about 25 states in Nigeria, cannot pay their salaries. If they are going by the minimum wage of 35,000. Not to talk of the new minimum wage that is being proposed. So the country has found itself in a fix. So they are looking for money from every means, though it is at the detriment of people. Aqua, there was a time they banned this sachet aqua in Nigeria. And because of the cry, the alcoholic, those companies, they cried. They said more than 30% of their workforce will be laid off because that's what people consume. Relatively, government has been silent about it. They were forceful at the beginning. But when they saw the trend, when they saw the economic implication of that policy, as good as that policy is, they saw that it's going to be counterproductive. They just were silent about it like that. So that's the way we see some of the decisions, many of them, some of them in the government, they are moral. They believe that gambling is not good. But what would they do in a situation in which they will not be able to pay salaries if they don't have revenue from this source, from that source, from the other source? So these are the things they juggle with. They are also in fix. It's not that they don't know this truth, but the reality is against them.
Great. And we've got a question on, is it Dave? Sir? Yes, okay.
All right, thank you. I have about 2 questions that I would like to ask the panel, people that are the discussants, actually. Number one of it is, how can religion, perform better than just taking a doctrinal stand on against gambling or betting? When talking about religion now, we already make an analysis just now, and we heard that Islam categorically state that it's haram, that is, it's the same, but it's unclear in the Christian line. So how can the both religion, beyond doctrinal stand on against gambling and betting, how can they actually perform better to see that, okay, this issue of gambling amongst people or youth particularly is kind of, minimized or brought to a minimal level? Then 2 is, the other aspect I think of, though it's not particularly our center focus in this discussion, is that there is a kind of influence from influencers and celebrities online currently that actually, motivate young people to kind of go into betting, because from their contents and skits and what have you, they tend to market and, advertise betting stores and as a sure way of how the young people can make earnings or daily living. So, and from the slogans of most of these betting sites, or betting companies, like particularly Bet Ninja, which says that reward for passion. So it's even much more promising than most of the religious mantras that we hear: give and it shall be given unto you. So how can we just resolve all these issues and what have you?
Yeah, I think I'll let the panelists answer, but I just want to add something to that. Can they go? Well, if you see JJ Okocha on the streets, I don't know too many Nigerians that it's the Mercurial ex-footballer for Nigeria. It did so well, and everybody loved this guy. But it's an ambassador to some of these major betting. He said it's starting, and all of our ex-footballers are actually into this business.
Yeah, sure.
And you don't hate these people.
In the US too.
Right. So another thing is, I think Dr. Folabi asked the question, if gambling is evil. That's one. And then it's because we have infused gambling into religion. If you take it out of the religious sphere, it's actually a legal business in Nigeria, really, isn't it?
And somewhere else in the world, of course.
So maybe someone, I think someone delivered a paper on theological perspective. Was it you, sir? Okay.
Yes.
Maybe you can give us a theological dimension to the question.
Now, okay, thank you very much. Now, let me quickly, there are so many things the religious body can actually do in addressing the issue of gambling. Now, I want us to put gambling side by side with smoking, right? Now, the best that government can do is actually regulation. Just as, for instance, of course, we'll recall that it was difficult for government to ban smoking. It was difficult for government to ban those alcoholic beverages that are in small sachet, but they could regulate it. But beyond that, that is government. But let us just leave government by the side now. Let's come to the church. I believe at least these 3 things, if the church embark on it seriously, they will control gambling. Number one has to do with education. It has to do with, we really need to educate our young people as regard the evil that is associated with gambling. Now, the point is this. Somebody asked a question at one point, not on this platform, what is the relationship between insurance and gambling? What's the relationship between investment and gambling? Now, but we need to understand something. Even the insurance company, the investment platform are being regulated by government in order to protect the vulnerable part of the society. For instance, here, when it comes to gambling, if an adult engages in gambling, there's little or nothing the government can do about it because he has a right to spend his money the way he desires. He makes the money, he can spend it the way he wants to spend it. But the best we can do as a religious body is to educate him on the danger that is associated with gambling. Beyond educating them, we also need to empower. Believe me, a lot of these young people that we're talking about, the first school we all know is the family. If the family structure is not standing, then those children that comes out from such family are vulnerable. If the father is not there to correct, to educate, and do the right thing and be a good example to their children, then they become so vulnerable under social pressure. Peer pressure comes and begin to teach them ordinarily what the parent will not teach them. So there is a way the church can actually empower parents to the extent of providing the basic facilities in terms of education, investment education, and other things, other means of you take gambling away and leave them without nothing. If you are telling them not to gamble, then you must tell them what else can they do. So the church can educate, the church can empower, and the church can also engage. Now, I don't have any issue with JJ Okocha. I don't have any issue with all of these celebrities who are promoting gambling. They are doing their job. And I'm not blaming the gambling organization for promoting their business. They are in that business to make money. The best we can do is, for instance, you cannot blame anybody for promoting alcohol. You can't. But the best we can do is we can educate, engage, and make sure we regulate the consumption of alcohol. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to talk about before was an addendum to what you talked about with regards to the counter narrative with regards to betting or sport betting. And again, within the context of religion, especially in Nigeria. Like most of these apologists of gambling or those that are into gambling will say that the methodology that they use in arriving at who should they put their bet on is similar to what the foreign exchange experts will do. Yeah, that's what they say. From analyzing trends, evaluating precedents, and also, I mean, discerning their odds. I mean, they put a lot of work, which is considered expatriate work in some other profession, and they give justification to it in that thought. And also, with FX, people are losing money. We are not just talking about it. People are going into mental trauma because of foreign exchange, especially with the proliferation of foreign exchange platforms, fintech platforms that are making people lose money. And maybe they're even losing more than they are losing in gambling. But because we are very much related to those that gamble. These FX people, sometimes the organizations, they are losing so much. There are no conversations around that. And the gamblers and the apologists are using it as a justification as to why gambling cannot be a sin and also cannot be a crime in the society. I was just going to add it to what Professor Andrew said earlier. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we're going to end this week's session because